So, do you know your neighbors? Would you say you like them, love them? Well, what about, that neighbor? Jesus said, love that neighbor. Good morning and welcome to 755 Live. For about 5 minutes, you'll hear all about easy to remember soundbite versions of what Jesus said. And the point is to help you experience life to the fullest, the Jesus way. Today's Jesus Said in our Bible plan at bible.today.church comes from Matthew 22, verses 39 through 40. For some context, we're going to start in verse 34, and we'll be reading from the NET translation this morning. Now, when the Pharisees heard that he, being Jesus, had silenced the Sadducees, they assembled together. And one of them, an expert in religious law, asked him a question to test him. Now, unpacking this before we get to that question, the Pharisees and the Sadducees were like two different denominations at this time. They had very different views on the resurrection and many other things. Going on to verse 36 now. Teacher, this is the question, which commandment in the law is the greatest? Jesus said to him, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is like it. Now get this. The second is like it, is like the first. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets depend on these two commandments. Now, this was an interesting answer in a lot of ways to this question. And this question evidently came up a lot because we have other instances of Jesus being asked this or mentioning this. It was a common debate among first century Judaism. Much like today, popular teachers or rabbis at this time had a specific focus, like a brand statement. And they would say, well, this commandment is the most important. And their disciples would follow that. And we see a similar discussion in Mark 12. We see another discussion in Luke 10, where Jesus tells the Good Samaritan story, which we'll get to in a minute. And these two commands that Jesus mentioned, it was not a new concept. It was known. It just wasn't practiced. Going back to the law, in Leviticus 19:18, the command is very, very clear. It says, you must not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the children of your people, but you must love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. I am Yahweh. Now, the cultural understanding of this day was to take care of, be concerned for those like you, those in your community. And as Jesus is talking to the expert in Luke 10, another instance of a conversation like that, the expert was looking for an exemption clause to this whole love your neighbor thing, especially that neighbor. In Luke 10:29, the expert, wanting to justify himself, said to Jesus, and who is my neighbor? And that's when Jesus told the story of the Good Samaritan. A Samaritan was an outcast at this time to the Jewish people. And Jesus made him the hero of the story because he cared for someone not like him. And Jesus said to go and do that was really showing mercy. So the expert looking for an exemption of who is my neighbor, and Jesus gave the example of even an outcast taking care of someone not like them as being the example of a good neighbor. And over, Jesus made it clear that we aren't just supposed to like and take care of and love those who are like us, those who are in our little club. In Luke 6:31 and 32, he said, treat others in the same way that you would want them to treat you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. The question for Jesus followers today is, what's the difference between us and the world? The world loves those who are like them. And we see the cancel culture, and we see all of these things where there's division and chaos and finger pointing and name calling among the world today. But if we as Jesus followers aren't different from the world, if we're doing the same thing, only loving those that are in our little private club, how can we really make a difference? And how can we say that we're following what Jesus said? Because Jesus said, love that neighbor. Yeah, even that one that you think doesn't deserve love. So how can you put that into action today? Thank you so much for listening. If this is meaningful to you, it really does mean a lot to me if you like it, if you share it, if you comment. I really appreciate the support. Thank you, Rita, Teresa, and Tina for checking in today. I hope that you have an amazing day, and I hope this time together has helped you live life to the fullest, the Jesus way. So remember, love that neighbor and follow Jesus today. Love first.